I don't know if you know, but there was a name change. So
I saw.
again, so instead of Stevie, hold that up a little bit.
I did hear that.
Yeah, like almost up, almost like at your face.
I feel like it's covering my face for the video.
You don't have to worry about it. You're not that good looking. So
I thought you were changing your name for a second. I thought you were coming out or something. What are you talking about?
yeah, dude.
How do you feel about it?
With what?
After you announced it, do you love it?
I like the name better. I do.
Okay.
But at the same time, like anything with sports, it's like you have to explain that, and people aren't going to listen if they even see the title. Sometimes it's like my thing is this: like if you know more about what's going on inside the Eagles locker room than you know about like what's going on in your kids' lives, like you might want to reassess. Yeah, I mean, there's drama between. I'm like, who cares? Who cares? You know. So today, what we're going to do is me and Scott are going to sit across and interview. I guess not really. Just have a conversation with Stevie Purcell. Me and Stevie linked up. The first time we met, you remember when we met?
I don't remember the first time we met.
Again, you're coming in a little low.
Sorry. Yeah.
It's all right.
I would say downtown.
Look at this fancy equipment.
Oh yeah, I do remember taking an officer's test. Yeah. There you go.
Downtown, right in the hotel room.
Yeah.
So we were taking a promotional test and got put together after you were done.
Yeah.
Right? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first time, and then linked up.
We both knew each other.
Exactly.
Of each other in the same circles or whatever.
Yeah. Then linked up with EAP, with our employment there, and doing that kind of thing, and became buddies since, and really kind of within the last, I guess, 2 years, became a lot closer.
Yeah.
Right, and and it's funny when I get cool with a couple of these guys, and through the 12 steps and all that kind of stuff. Then like I introduce people to Scott, and like you and Scott have hit it off ever since too.
Yeah, that's what's so funny.
You guys got a lot more in common than that's what I said. It's funny, like me and Scott are even friends, because I'm like the total opposite of everybody, especially you two. I'm just like, I'm pretty simple. I don't have that much timidity. I shot a gun once, never hunted, just not outdoorsy, I remember going for a run one time with Scott, and he's just like, oh, check out the view over there. And like, he was talking about like trees and sunsets and stuff. And like, my mind wasn't there. I'm like, okay. Yeah. So it's just.
Well, I remember. I guess I've probably known Steve for about 2 years now, right? When I introduced through you, and immediately I was like, "Wow, he's really thoughtful." Like not in a caring sense, but in just like an introspective sense, and it was just unusual or unique, and it was like refreshing. Like I immediately was like, "Oh wow!" And then you said right from the gate, like, "You're gonna love this dude," And I just had a very original way of looking at things, which I found compelling, as a human being.
Yeah, because you guys hit each other up, go on runs all the time, take the dogs out, all that kind of stuff, right? Pretty regularly.
Yeah.
Right, once a week, hit
at
it
least.
up.
Yeah. It's been a weird. It's not weird. You say that but I don't think that's the ties that bind us either. You know what I mean? Like just because we have different paths and the nature piece of it and all that, you can still get together very easily, and we all have a lot more in common than just that. You know?
No, I know that. Because it's again, I think it's really what it all derives from is really just 12-step kind of stuff. Like you build up those relationships because of this journey you become a part of. And I wasn't looking for buddies. I wasn't looking for to make new friends. I just kind of wanted to stop hurting people. I just wanted to be able to look in the mirror. And then when you go through this intimate process, obviously, there's going to be certain people you really connect with.
Yeah.
You guys are definitely two of them in my world today.
Well, when I say the compelling piece or the original way of looking at things, it wasn't activities and recreation that I'm talking about. It was originally through the 12-step stuff and hearing him talking there, and he was been around but fairly new on some level. But his take on it was so genuine and I keep using the word thoughtful, but to me that was a big deal because you don't hear that from people who are newer that often. The way that he digested it was unique, and that and that's through the program of recovery that I found it interesting from the gate. It was genuine and he felt it, and that's a big deal because you don't see that early on in a lot of people.
Well, his delivery isn't anything that's rehearsed or you see on the wall, or
and that's what happens with people who are new. And I get it. I probably was the exact same way. You hear something, you repeat it, you parrot it. you're trying to fit in. I mean, it's a whole new group of 40, 50 dudes and a whole new world, and you're just trying to assimilate into it. And sometimes you lose a little bit of your own identity initially coming into something like that, right? Because it's still a peer environment.
Well, that's what's so cool about hearing him and Danny O. You know, Danny, my buddy Danny, and just hearing them, it's just how authentic and genuine they are when they share. Whether you know we're at a meeting together, we're doing whatever, and if it's 5 minutes or they actually are the speaker that night, like the way they share is just very heartfelt and relatable. So it's pretty cool. So before we even get into Stevie, what I want to explain is, you know, Shawnee's home with an earache. He's upstairs. He comes in, ignoring this at all, starts disrupting, whatever. I'm bailing out. You guys continue, talk as long as you want, talk about whatever you want. You know, it's you're kind of you're running the show, Steve. It's kind of whatever you want to do.
If that happens, backup plan. What do we do to shut this down?
All you gotta do is go up to the phone and just click it.
Okay.
That's it. Go
That's
up to the
that
phone,
easy.
and then everything else will still be up and running. And I'll shut that off myself.
All right.
You're good to go.
Before we go any further than that, let me just say this. It's weird even being here. It's weird having a microphone in front of my face, and it's weird having you guys say 2 minutes of nice things without breaking my balls in between it. So, I hold you guys as like monsters of this community and everything else. So, and again, even to be mentioned amongst either of your names, man, I really like is humbling to me, and I cherish and hold your friendships very close, man. So thank you both for that going forward.
We appreciate that, right? And then imagine if he said this down our original home group.
Oh, dude. I'm waiting for the text.
Yeah, we would get absolutely crushed. Like we were just down there like Wednesday, remember before Thanksgiving, and somebody said something. Were you there?
Yeah.
Yeah, remember they said something, and it was like something pretty routine amongst the community of that 12-step, and it was something along the lines like a grateful heart will never drink again. And then so they quoted me, and I'm looking, I'm like, I know definitely I got it from Scott. Scott might, and it's like it wasn't me. So then at the end, by the end of the meeting, I was telling everybody that I also made up keep coming back and work if you work. So yeah, but it's cool hearing that kind of stuff, and it really it's just it's cool to be a part of. That's all it is, dude.
Yeah, no, it is. It is, and the things that it affords you, man. Like, I never expected starting out in this that I would have two. I was talking to little Stevie yesterday, and I was telling him a little bit about what was going on, and we were talking about how he doesn't have a brother, and I said, man, I'm lucky to have some really good friends in my life, and I have some brothers, and he's like, oh no, you don't, you don't understand, he's 7, I'm like, I do, dude. I have dudes that I could call at any time. That if I really ran into some trouble and needed some help, I have a few guys in my life, and that's pretty much what a brother is to me. You know what I mean? And so I'm thankful for you guys, man.
Good stuff, man. Later, put that a little closer too, because I just have a feeling you're the only one I really can't hear.
Okay.
All the way. So I'll just keep it, and then. So take us back, dude. Take us back to the beginning of whatever, little Stevie, when the drugs, the alcohol, whatever started.
Funny. Mickey was just making fun of me the other day because this dude we got introduced to at basketball. Stevie is Stevie, right? And I always go by Steve, and I think you're the only other adult that calls me Stevie. And I never wanted him to be Stevie because I was like, I always think of Stevie Nicks, and I'm like, it sounds like you got to cut that off at like 7. You know what I mean? You can get away with it.
I'll give you Steven. I'll give you Steven.
Yeah, man. I taking it back. My son reminds me a lot of me as a kid, dude. I was a very soft kid for a long time, and I still am. You know what I mean? I can't believe some of the things I do in life, and then I still at the end of the day I think of myself as a very soft person. And I'm okay with that. I I keep the world out from jading me too bad, and I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. As a little kid, I had a sister 2 years after I was born, and she to this day is still one of my best friends in the world. And we had a very close relationship, and I see that in my kids, and I love that with them. And I had a very loving mother and father. My mom was afforded not to necessarily work when we were young, was able to keep tabs on us at home and help out with the house stuff and raising us. And my dad worked 2 jobs. He worked for PGW for 30 years, and then always did his own side business, heating and air conditioning, which is where I like to think I got a lot of my work ethic from. And I just came from a great background, man. I always said, like, on paper, I should have never been an addict, and I had a lot of love in my life, and I never went without, and that just goes to show you how it doesn't necessarily choose. It's just a roll of the dice sometimes. We grew up, we moved out of the city. I was born in Fox Chase, which I left early on. My parents wanted to give us a better life, get us outside the city, and we moved to Bucks County up to Southampton. I went to grade school all up there. My mom, because of the time she had at home, was very involved in my life, mine and my sister's life. She coached my basketball teams and my baseball teams, and I won some championships with her and had really really good childhood that way. Maybe a little bit overbearing because I was involved a little too much in things, you know what I mean? She still can be a pain in my butt sometimes, but I am the same to her. And I love her to death, and I have these great memories. I'm trying to get her now to coach a team with Stevie next year, but she says she's not going to do it, but we'll see.
Why don't you coach?
Well, because of the schedule. It's tough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You can always dip your hand into being an assistant.
I do that all the time anyway. But if I get her to take the head coach job,
Get her to come out of retirement.
yeah, and then I can just show up. You know what I mean? So I talked to her about the other day. She shut it down immediately, but I'm gonna work on her. Yeah. Other than that, man, my dad is one of my idols in life. I have a great relationship with him. He was the best man in my wedding, which is awesome. I'm Steve Purcell Jr., and my son, I continued that on. He's the third, which I never knew how I was going to feel about that until like it was game time decision, and I didn't have any other thought in my head, so I just went with it. And I probably won't love it later on, but it is what it is. And it's cool because I always felt like I had big shoes to fill as a kid, and that's why I didn't necessarily like it. But I think that was a lot of guilt in that because I feel like I've turned all that around, and now he's got the same thing to look up to. So hopefully, and yeah, so I had a really normal childhood. Played a lot of sports. Went on vacations. Did all types of really fun stuff, and up till about 9th grade, everything was exactly how it was. I never touched a drug. I saw the Dare commercials, and I was never going to be that guy. You know what I mean? I would always have these crazy thoughts in my head that kids came up to you and offered you drugs, and they would hold you up at knife point. And they're like, "Oh, you gotta do these drugs, or we're gonna kill you and your family." You know what I mean? I thought that's how it came to you, right? And I never realized how until later. And I try to say this to people: it comes at you especially young kids. It comes at you so sideways. It comes at you so much sweeter than this thing of we're gonna take you hostage and kill you unless you try this, you know. And I was in 9th grade. I was getting ready for wrestling season. Just started high school, and
What high school did you go to?
William Tennant.
Okay.
And I caught this crazy bone disease, right? Where I'm in medical books for. And I had osteomyelitis, which is staph infection, and it got into my bone, into my foot. And long story short, I was in a wheelchair. I had a PICC line in my arm for 3 months, IVs at home. I almost lost my leg. If it wasn't for my mom, I probably would have lost it because my dad just dude, put a Band-Aid on and get out of here. You know what I mean? And if it wasn't for my mom, I legitimately would probably lost my leg. At that point in time, during the hospital, they had to put a drain in, surgery. I was in the hospital for about 2 weeks at the longest point, and they had me on a morphine drip. And I didn't think much of this till after, right? Until I could start putting the pieces together later in life. So anyway, morphine drip for 2 weeks, and then they go to take me off it before I get out of the hospital, and my aunt's there, my Aunt Jackie, and I remember cursing her out, and I'd never showed that side of my life before, you know, and I was just an animal, dude, when they took me off this. Early on, you know what I mean? That's the first interaction with any drugs in my life. And again, I'll put all this together a little later, but after that, I can't even wear shoes that tie, right? I had to wear like white Velcro shoes for my shit, right? And
You were probably a total threat on that basketball court.
yeah.
Watch out for the kid with the Velcro
So,
straps.
well, anyway, and I say that because that's just so funny. When the original name of the podcast was Anything But Sports, right? That totally changed my life, dude. After that, because I couldn't do sports anymore, and all my foundation was in that, right? And now that I couldn't do that, now I'm starting to get rides to school with the older kids, and I don't have that time to fill. And now I'm like looking at different things. And it wasn't long after that that I tried smoking weed, right? And then once I got that, and then I unknowingly I'm chasing this.
So you didn't even take a drink first. You started smoking pot.
Man, I think I don't even remember at this point, man. I might have had a drink first, but it wasn't long after, right? It was very like close in time. And but weed was the one that did it, like because the first time I got high, I like was opened up, and I'm like, holy shit. And then it was just this chase until I inevitably found, and I got through the rest of school, and then my grades start declining after that, and it was just a struggle. I never had a struggle, and then it was a struggle for 3 years, you know what I mean? And then I ended up finding Percocets, and once that first time I took Percocets, I knew that that's what my body was craving for the last 3 years when I finally found them, and it was inexplicable. Like I always said, I felt like I had after that dose of morphine for so long in the hospital, I felt like I had this unquenchable thirst in my mouth, this constant dryness in my mouth, and then I found that, and I knew right then and there that that's what that was. You know what I mean? And yeah, so man, talk about just wreckage at that point, man.
How old were you when you found Percocets?
I probably maybe made that till junior, senior year.
So you were still in high school.
Yeah, and it didn't become habitual at that point, but it was trying different things and learning some tough lessons, right? Because I'm trying Xanax and hating that because it was just a memory eraser, you know what I mean? And just trying different things and then figuring out what you like, and then all of a sudden it was once you found it, you know how that goes. And
How old are you?
I'm gonna be 40 this year.
Okay, yeah, I'm 41. But that's the same kind of stuff that when I was coming up, it was the stuff on the weekends, and the opiates were eventually my crippling downfall. Again, I have done them before young, at an early age, and the message is always I opened up doors I didn't realize I wasn't going to be able to close for a long time.
Yeah. Is that your line or?
No, probably me. I probably made that up. Yeah,
I love that one.
I think I heard that from Chris Herron, the dude from Unguarded documentary on ESPN. If you ever get a chance to watch that, or if you're probably already, most people already have. It's pretty powerful. But that always resonated with me, where I'm like, yeah, that's how it was in the neighborhood, doing this stuff early on. We were babies, dude, making these adult decisions, and didn't realize what I was signing up for. But I did the whole the E, acid, in high school, all this kind of stuff that again, with Percocets here and there, and then you probably grew up in the Oxycontin epidemic and all that kind of stuff too, and that ran rampant. And you don't question what you're doing when 90% of the dudes you're running around with are kind of trying out the same things.
Yeah.
The guy that never smoked pot was the guy that was looked at as that's weird. Why?
Well, we have this false sense, I think, because again, they tell you have this unrealistic image of what drugs are, and even today, I feel there's again, looking at raising kids now and all this stuff, there is maybe a different conversation that you have, right? Because there might be, when you're being honest and talking about them, there could be good drugs and there could be bad drugs, right? I'm not supporting and saying to go, but there's differences between marijuana and maybe mushrooms versus cocaine and crack, right? And I'm not saying that either right and people's can't handle. I can't do any of them, right? I've learned that. I've banged my head on that table too many times, right? But you have this idea, and everything's and then the pills come at you differently because it's
medicine, right?
It's a medicine. It's a medicine. You know what I mean? And then people are drinking tons of Robitussin and they're getting high off that, and it was just so much.
Well, I think like most conversations, like there's just a dishonesty to it, right? Like there just isn't an honest conversation presented to you at a young age, so you can really process it and understand what you're up against. It's either like just very demonized, like that old Nancy Reagan, like just say no, and you smoke weed once and you're gonna die, kind of thing.
Right, and then you open that gate, and then you're like, oh,
you're lying to me.
Right, they're lying.
Right.
Like, what else?
So they lose credibility, and then you don't have a realistic picture of like really is.
So I think we do ourselves, just like a lot of things, but I think we do ourselves a big disservice that way, because once you feel like you're lied to, and then you're like, oh well, maybe, and then you have nothing else to base it on, right? So you're just like, oh well, is this the same as that? And then you got to try and start
figuring
it out at
life experience.
16, 17, 18 years old, and then you're mixing in hormones and having sex for the first time and all this other shit at the same time on a brain that can't comprehend what his body's doing, you know what I mean, or what his body's going through. I think it's setting you up for failure. And I think, again, that's the thing I realized going forward, and I think I learned from you guys and everything else, especially we're at different stages in our life with kids and all. But I think that's like...
it's crazy, it's wild.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that sounds like a little waterfall.
Yeah.
I got some sound effects too. No,
I think it's a fancy
I
control
don't know how
board.
to even work it. But yeah, before you keep going further, I remember now you said that my first DARE counselor, what does it stand for? Drug something resistance education, right? My first DARE.
I remember the shirts, but I don't know what it stood for.
Remember McGruff or something like that? Yeah.
It's
So
sad that neither of the three of us know what DARE stands for.
Yeah.
It's obvious.
Yeah,
we end up here doing this.
Well, obviously, we all ended up in recovery, so.
Yeah.
We didn't, but my first DARE teacher was like a nun. And pretty much told us like if you do anything, like your head's gonna fall off. And like she hit us up with statistics like one, like she's like, yeah, companies are gonna end up drug addicts, and well we did, but I'm like at the same time, it's like, oh God. But that was it. Like but you need to get people in there that actually, understands what they're up against, has probably lived a lifestyle. Like here's 3 examples to get it, because I've talked to like high school kids. You can get in there and talk to even grade school kids now. It's sad, but it's having an honest conversation with them about like, I always tell them, you can do whatever you want. I'm not here to preach to you. I'm going to tell you my nightmare, and you can do whatever you want, but the consequences is yours as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of times with drinking and drugging, like what's it present itself as is fun.
Yeah.
Fun, fitting in, and
Confidence.
And that door opens, man, and you have no idea what you're signing up for.
Yeah.
I didn't.
No, and that's the shame of it all, man. Like, I don't know if it's necessarily a lack of education or a lack of something that people don't want to talk about or however it is, but it hurt. And then at the same time, you have the Oxycontin epidemic, right? You see all this shit that's going on now, and you're coming out with the Sackler family and all this shit, and it's like, and none of the, whatever, that's a whole different thing. But it's fucked up, man, and
When you get into the opiates, it's a little bit of a different beast too, because that hook's set before you even know it.
I
mean, by the time you realize there might be a problem, it's a bigger problem than you bargained for.
Yeah.
I mean, you bit off more. You know what I mean? Like, at least for me, I know, like, once I started had a suspicion that like this might be not good, like it was too late. Like,
I know guys that tried it one time and were off to the race. They were done. They were hook line. It was done. It was, and people were like, whatever happened to him? It's like, well, because he got heavily addicted to drugs in like high school.
Yeah.
Like over time, mine like took place, but instantly for some people that experiment with that, and that's what I always tell like the parents. It's like when I speak to kids or whatever, like summer school, I've done different things at like Rome and St. Joe's Prep, and someone's going to have a talk with your kids about drugs and alcohol. It might as well be me, right? And like I invite you to come. Right? Because they're going to have a talk, or be you, whatever. But like I'm comfortable having this, maybe an uncomfortable conversation because of just the way I live.
Right.
And guess what? It might not be that easy for me to do with my own kids coming up. I might have to ask somebody else.
I think about that too, like, and because it might not hold the same amount of like power coming from you as it would if they know Uncle Sean or Uncle Scott, right? They have that conversation.
I wonder too, like, this is specific to us, but like, I think about my own son, like growing up, like around, I've been sober, 5 years longer than he's been alive, so all he's ever known is my sober friends and that world, and it's like you wonder like what their take on, on that is if you grow up like, knowing that it's a problem,
Yeah, it's definitely a different perspective than what I had, and mine wasn't like mine was the same kind of household, and all loving and
Right.
all that kind of stuff too. But people had some drinks on the weekends.
Yeah.
Doesn't make them bad people.
No.
It's like I shouldn't have been doing it at 14 years old
Yeah.
on a regular basis. That's what I always tell people. Like we wonder why we like athletically peak, academically peak in the neighborhood. It's like, well, because you're drinking regularly and doing drugs since you're 14, 15 years old. And then when you're like overweight at 19, you're wondering what happened to my career.
Right.
I remember my one buddy talking about the glory days. I'm like, dude, you're 21. Like that was a real conversation.
Well, I think and I mentioned this to you guys before, right? And like this is always like my idea. If I ever, I have a lot of ideas, right? And some of I capitalize on. But I always had this idea of writing a book, And it's like, when did I become a man? And I say that all the time because like because I still don't know, you know what I mean? I still don't have the answer to that. But I've constantly been searching for it because I'm old as a young man. I'm watching my parties with my uncles on my mom's side, who a couple of them, one just recently died of alcoholism, and you see everybody sitting around drinking and they're laughing and having a good time. So then you think like, oh, that's what you have to gravitate toward, you know what I mean? And then getting into hunting camp with the mountains and all the uncles are drinking. It's like, oh, when do I get accepted into that? If I can stay up and drink with them, then all of a sudden am I a man? You're constantly like asking that question. At least I was, you know what I mean? When are they going to take me serious? When do I get a seat at the adult table? You know what I mean? Is it when I can stay up all night drinking with them? Is it when I can bring stories to the table about, whatever, X, Y, and Z, whatever it is. And in their mind, that was never their focus. They were just having a good time. But you want to be accepted, And I find that in a lot of my life, in my stories, like I always just wanted to be accepted. And I was willing to go to any lengths to get there, you know what I mean? And that's definitely not when you become a man, when you're trying to be something you're not, you know what I mean? I know that much. And that plagued me for a long time. And I try and hopefully right the ship so my son doesn't ever have to go through that and feel that way, or my daughter, you know what I mean?
Maybe the answer to that's like when you stop asking.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
really,
Like
yeah.
when you're no longer like you're kind of like you're there.
Yeah.
You don't even know it.
Yeah, you might have been there already and you have no idea you arrived.
Yeah. No, it could be.
I think honestly for me, like even like a man or whatever, I think it's just when you finally start just being comfortable in your own skin.
Yep.
Like I'm done trying to fit in. My buddy Chris always used to say, like, I don't walk into rooms like I own them. Like I'm walking in a room like I don't care who owns them.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It's none of my concern. Like I'm just here. This is who I am. Like me, great. If not, that's okay. Like,
Well, and when you have like a real confidence in yourself, because you know, when you put your head on the pillow and like you know who the fuck you are, right? And like, I wake up with the same person I went to bed with, being myself. You know what I mean? And like, what that correlates to for life, man. Because like I know what I am, right? I know what I'm capable of. I know that if you are my friend, you get a fair shake in this deal. I know that if I say I'm going to do something, I'm accountable to it, right? And like, that's all part of what that means to me. You know what I mean? And I expect that. The problem is a lot of times I expect that in other people, and I don't get that, right? I haven't gotten that. Not in everybody, and that's where that's let me down too in life. You know what I mean? You expect everybody to have the same background as you and hold the same set of morals, and they don't.
Morals, values, and again, love and tolerance is our code. Good luck with that. Yeah, good luck.
But so anyway, I would get a little sidetracked. But so after high school, I graduate barely. I end up like almost failing. I end up, because this is how public school system works, I ended up making a piñata for my computer teacher, and I just took a bag of dollar store candy, wrapped it in white masking tape, and then drew a keyboard on it. And she gave me enough extra credit to pass her class, and I was able to graduate. That's fucking yeah. So that's how that went. And get out of there. I decided I'm gonna try and do Bucks County Community College thing, and then that went a year, and then I didn't do well at that because my mind was elsewhere all the time. All the while, the damage is starting at home, right? The lying, stealing. And not just like stealing money, right? But like stealing love, stealing energy. Like Stevie said to me the other day, he's like, such shit. He's like, Dad, were you a vampire? And I was like, you know what, bud? Like I was, man, for a long time. Like I was an energy vampire, man. You know what I mean? And I'm not proud of it, you know. And that's like really how I like view myself, man. Because I sucked everything out of everybody, man. And that's like the reality of what I had become at some point in my life, you know. And man, the pain and the fucking the shit I caused, and it's so different to look at that now, as a father who cares for his kid. My mom and dad care for me more than anything in the world, and then to think about what they had to go through, and me picturing Stevie and Rory like that is fucking crushing, man. You know what I mean? And I just I could never say I'm sorry enough to them. You know what I mean? And the only way I can even try and right that ship is by doing the next right thing.
Well,
You
you're
know?
showing them, right?
Absolutely.
How many times have we said it, and meant it, and went back?
I meant it every time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
That's
that's the
just it.
problem.
You would have hooked us up to lie detector test during that period of time. It's like I would have passed.
Yeah.
I really meant it, man. It's just when that thing, when you're in the grips of it, it's like good luck.
Yeah, well, you put it really good. Like you tell a story, and I'm not going to tell your story, but you say like the ultimatum was there, and you're like, dude, it's not even a choice, right? And like that's the harsh reality of that. Like
You're not even second or third.
no.
It's a landslide victory,
And
man.
I didn't have any tools or anything to cope with that and deal with it. You know what I mean? So going forward, I'm messing around a lot, trying to hold some jobs and this, that, and the other thing. And nothing's just working out, right? I can keep my head above water, and I'm starting to realize now that there's a bit of a problem going on too. And
Is this when you had the job as the raccoon collector guy?
this was right about the same time. Yeah.
Did you know this about Steve?
Yeah, I think I remember it. It's like
He was like an animal pest remover.
yeah, it's like it's a generic David Goggins.
Yeah, it was
Is
one
that
of
what
those-
he did?
Yeah,
Did he have the
was
same
like
job?
bug control or something.
Oh,
like
okay,
that.
okay,
He also-
okay.
yeah,
He's like Orkin Man?
He was
Yeah.
like doing something and like
This dude would go trap raccoons.
yeah, David Goggins would do some stuff at like restaurants or something like that. I remember
Okay.
I read his books. And he like lost his shit one time. Like all these cockroaches fell on him. And, like that was one of like the turning points of like, what the fuck am I doing?
Right.
And yeah,
didn't
here we
know
go.
that.
We
Yeah.
got who needs David Goggins? We got Stevie Purcell, dog.
Yeah, man. So that was still one of the funnest jobs I've ever had. But I got fired from that. And
What'd you get fired for again? I know you just told the story.
nothing crazy. Like I just
Then you locked the keys in the car.
no, that I never got fired for that.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I'm sure it didn't help my fucking case, but they never knew about that.
Okay.
Yeah. My cousin Rye bailed me out on that one, and but yeah, anyway, so yeah, I'm just playing the game, trying to figure out what I'm gonna do, right? And that's like a tough age for kids, man. I think about that a lot too. Like at 18, we're supposed to tell them, and then they're supposed to know what they're supposed to do the rest of their life, and they don't even know who they are. Like that's a really tough thing I think about a lot, and.
Yeah, but it's okay to ask those questions today, though, too, because that's it. When I like worked with kids like high school, I taught coach soccer and all, and I would just have honest conversations with some of the kids. Because when I was coming up, people were like, "Go to college." I'm like, "Okay," and pretty much like, "Oh, don't worry, you don't have to declare." Okay, and then some people were like, "Oh, what are you going to do?" And I would either say, "I'm not sure," or business, and there was no follow-up questions. It was business. And I was like, "Okay," I didn't know what that even meant. You know what I mean? Like I would just say it so because it sounds good. And these 18-year-old kids, it's like okay to have these honest conversations. Like, well, what do you want to do? What are you looking at? Like my thing with college is always like, well, you go there. Your goal should be, let's see if they have a major that you might be interested in. Like, what do you like to do? Start discussing that now, saying it out loud. See if they have it, and get out of there with the least amount of debt. Right. And then some kids, I'm like, there was kids that were working. And yeah, that's cool. Like, and you're making money. I get what it's like to make money as an 18-year-old kid. That's neat. But here's the thing, like, is it, under the table? Are you, on the books? Are you getting benefits? Are you getting, like, your retirement plan? Are you doing all that kind of stuff as well? So, and a couple of kids that I coached, it wasn't because of me. It was just, like, the path they chose. They talked to their parents. And, again, I don't know if their parents would even approve of what I was saying.
Right.
But it was just an honest conversation of, like, letting them talk to me if college was for them. And some of them ended up in, PGW. Some of them went to local power drivers unions and stuff like that. And they're doing really well today. A couple of them early on had kids, and it was just cool to you know, almost look at these kids as myself all those years ago and like be the person to like ask the follow up.
Yeah, and that's an important part of that, man, because it's a tough, and then you don't have many people that are being honest with you, because a lot of the
Once
parents
again,
don't
right?
even
But
know.
is it-
Yeah, like a lot of people don't know what to tell you in those parts, and no one like loves your kids as much as you do. You know what I mean? And that's the reality of that. And I was saying that to Stevie again the other day. Like, your teachers and all, they all have their best interest for you, but like nobody cares about you more than I do, buddy. You know what I mean? And so anyway, bouncing my head off, you know, the wall in a sense, and I going back and forth, and I have no idea what I'm doing. And now people are dying. Now friends of mine are starting to die. You're seeing that there's real problems starting. My life at my house is just going totally insane.
Are you still living with your parents at this point?
Yeah. I've now made the transition for the first time because someone who, you know, I thought was, no one knows what they're talking about. You're talking about a bunch of drug addicts, and I couldn't afford the Percocets and the pills anymore. So now they tell me, oh, well, you can do heroin. It's a lot cheaper, right? And then I make that switch, and that's game over. You know what I mean? And and then you know, my family finds this.
What were you thinking at this time? I mean, this even think for me, like the first time I ever tried heroin, even the little blue black, like everything about it was just so.
Yeah, it's wild, man.
It's a weird step that you never think you're gonna take, right?
Nah.
Like it's that thing where it's like as much as you're doing these pills, it's still like seems like it's on some level it's pharmaceutical or it's medicine. There's this weird like odd.
Well,
even though it's not real justification you have, but when
and
you step
point,
over that line
choice.
to that blue bag, dude.
Yep.
like,
At that point, you don't even have a choice because you're just sick, dude. You know?
oh, absolutely. It's not like you have, but there's still that like for me there was a gravity to it, even though there was no choice. But it was like there was just kind of like
yeah, like a hopelessness.
like I'm here,
Yeah.
like I'm here.
Yeah, and I remember like having there was a kid in my high school that died, and his mom came in and talked to us and all, and he died of heroin and all, and I remember like thinking that as I'm about to do that for the first time, and I'm like, what the fuck happened, man? But I don't have.
How did I get here?
I don't have
like,
a choice, you know.
Yeah.
So then that starts, and then all the while this is all coming out. My parents had tried to send me to a rehab or like a meeting group. My dad had taken me to my first AA meeting early on, like I might have been in 9th or 10th grade.
Oh wow.
And we ran, and because they identified it, man, they knew it, and he took me in there with him, and he just said, "Look, I'm here with my son. I don't think I have an issue. My son's going through some stuff." I met a family or a friend of the guy I knew in the neighborhood, very successful guy, had been sober for a long time. He recently just died, and I never forget that conversation him and I had, and he was going through it, and anything he could ever do, and I ended up trying to go work at his restaurant for a little while, and I just couldn't get my shit together, man, for a long time. And then at one point in time, even when I was just on the pills, I went away to rehab, and I went to like a detox, and then I did everything I could to not go to the rehab side of that, and you know how that game goes. And then because I'm like looking in there, and then I'm hearing everybody romanticize heroin while they're in there, and like I'm like, oh, I don't have a problem. Like these guys got problems, you know what I mean? So, dude, it's just a terrible couple years, you know what I mean? And
well, there is like on some level, like especially early on when you're trying to identify, there's like these levels to this thing where it's like that dude's on the app, or that dude was homeless, and it's like. You all are on the same path. You don't realize in the time, like you're just on a different place in the timeline.
Exactly.
You're gonna end in the same spot.
The never
right?
have I ever list, dude.
Right.
You know what I mean? Just check it off the longer.
And you don't realize you're on that same escalator, or you know.
Yeah, and it's all going to the same place, man. And so go back and forth. Just now my parents know, and I never forget I remember one time and this is still when I'm just on pills. I remember like. Come clean, and I never came clean. I always got caught, and I'm laying in bed as a 20-some-year-old man with my dad, and I'm like going through withdrawals, and he's just there like hugging me, and he's like, "Dude, you got to go to work tomorrow." Like, and they like, I had like Tylenol 3s, and I were like divvying them out to me, just trying to wean me off, like trying everything in their power, man. The fuck.
Imagine that as a parent. Right?
Oh my God, I was thinking about that. It's fucking killing me. And yeah, man, that's fucking brutal.
I mean, well, that's to me. That's part of the gift of all this. Is it like your dad did what he could, but like you now have the ability to help somebody else's kid.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's the gift and the
And that's why
responsibility.
you have to wear. That's why we have to wear.
That's
it on
the
our
responsibility
sleeve. That's
of
why you have to do this. Like
Right.
someone asks you to do this, you got to do it. That's
Yep.
why you talk at an AA meeting. That's what.
How heavy is that? Like, not to interrupt it, but like you're picturing that scene, and it's like I think about that as a father.
Oh my
And it's
God.
like Jesus Christ,
Yeah,
man.
and it's funny. I don't think I've ever brought that up. And
I've never, yeah.
You know, and I'm just thinking about it now. Like I was sweating, dude. It's crazy.
But as a parent, like Jesus, man.
And dude, he never was exposed to any of this, right? My mom was like exposed to like addiction a little bit, but my dad, little bit. But like, I think about like, all the people in my life and all the ways that people changed in my life because of my addiction, and like he's probably came the furthest because he was like, you know, foot down, and then the understanding, the education that my dad has gotten in drugs in the last 10 to 15 years, unwillingly in a sense, but the way he handled it, like he handled it the best he could until he just couldn't anymore.
Well, he probably knew
And
it was
then there was-
love, right? Like it's all. I mean,
Yeah.
you know.
My mom probably held on a lot longer, right? Because then at one point he was just so detached, you know what I mean? And I'm sure he had some crazy thoughts going through his head and everything else. And I, you know, thinking about that now and having to take responsibility for all that, like that's tough, you know. And that's why I have to just do the next right thing all the time, you know. And
Well, you're also talking about, I know I heard you in passing about the detoxes and all that, but my dad, it's like that generation of neighborhood guys, like, they didn't talk about their feelings and emotions, they didn't talk about it, so like to process that kind of stuff, when you're watching your kid go through that, it's like, I remember like my dad,
yeah, I'm sure he wasn't talking to anybody about it.
Nah,
either, you know what I mean?
nah.
Like he was just
So
shutting
a
it
lot
down.
of it's
Well,
like-
what's funny is like, yeah, you got to work tomorrow.
Yeah.
You got to get him to go to work tomorrow, Steve.
yeah. Well, that's what I mean, like, that's what,
But,
like,
and that's that work ethic, and that's that
Right, right.
I say about that beat dog mentality, right? That I have, and a lot of that I got from the army, but like, I also get that shit from him too. You know what I mean?
yeah, no, totally. But I remember going away for the last time, and like my dad with tears in his eyes, like, dude, I'm just numb to you, man.
Yeah.
Just go.
Yeah.
Like, I'm tired. Just go. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah. I remember at one point, dude, he said to me, he's like, I would rather you just die because like, and how heavy's that, dude? Right? Because at least I know where you are, right? And I'm like, dude, what? And like, at the moment, it doesn't matter.
Yo, Dad, you could at least say jail or rehab. You wouldn't know where I was.
But dude, that's the like levity of the situation.
Totally.
We probably wanted it to. I mean, you think as a parent, we're all parents. It's like you think you know what love is until you have kids. Like you think you love your dog, you think you love your parents, you think you love your wife, you think, dude, you have no idea what love is until you have a kid.
No,
And then you realize like it's a whole nother level.
Yeah.
You know, like
I disagree with that in just one way, because there's people out there that don't have kids, so they know what love is. They know.
well, you're right. I mean, I guess
So-
the level of it.
And
I don't know how to explain it.
My thing is always this: like the day that I met Angelina, the days I locked eyes with her, I couldn't talk about it for 3 weeks without crying.
I remember being in the hospital.
I still can't talk about it.
You had like physical reactions to it, like
Yeah.
which is crazy, right?
As I said, I think it's the day you have a child and have a kid, the intensity of your emotions arise. Like they just go through the friggin' roof.
Yeah.
And again, I know what you're talking about. I just say that to like, because there are people
Yeah.
that don't have it.
Right. And that wasn't my intention to disparage.
Exactly.
Like it's just it's from my experience, it's a level that was just
Yes.
indescribable.
It was
Yep, big time.
through the roof, dude. When I remember, like I can recall that,
Well, there's that whole like, I mean, like I'd take a bullet for my wife or step in front of a train for my family.
Yeah.
I'd be like, are you kidding me? Like think about it. Like your kid.
Oh yeah.
There's no. I mean,
I got
sign me up, man. You know what I mean? Like you don't even think about it. There's no
You
like.
can't even try to explain that to him. Like I try to explain that to Stevie, right? Because like last week he's all upset and he missed a shot at the end of the basketball and he wants to be homeless and live in a trash can. And I'm trying to explain to him like, just how much like I love him, and Mickey's saying, "Well, you gotta get 2 trash cans because I'm gonna live in the one next to you and all." And like, and then also we're all living in trash cans now.
Well, with sports, this is what I always tell my kids, and I heard this from a coach at Cabrini was in the national championship in lacrosse. And the coach said to the boys, he said, listen, I don't love you anymore if you win. I'm not going to love you any less if you lose.
Yeah.
I say that to my kids every time they go out, they play a sport or whatever. And it's just like, it doesn't define who you are, how much I love. I don't care. It doesn't, even when Anthony comes home with a report card or like, dude, I don't care.
Well,
like,
that's
it's cool.
What happened with Steve yesterday, that's exactly how I met him. I said, dude, the day before he had a really good practice, and I'm like, dude, I'm so proud of you, I love you. And then that's exactly how I met him yesterday after he didn't have a good day. And I said, hey, bud, I just want to let you know, I love you and I'm proud of you, right? And like, that's what that's all about, man, you know? But anyway, getting sidetracked. And,
So your dad was in bed with you.
yeah, so, and then,
Oh, I missed that part.
Oh,
yeah.
It's actually kind of
Started
powerful.
going through withdrawals, man.
No,
It's
I
fucked
know.
up.
I heard the Tylenol
Yeah.
freeze, and they're just trying to get you through the suffering of it all.
So, yeah, man, and it's dark time, dude. And so, around this point, they said people were dying and the whole thing, and my dad gives me
You
the
talking about in your family? You're talking about in the neighborhood because of?
Yep. And the ultimatum is like, dude, you got to get the fuck out of here. I don't know what you're gonna do, and I decided I'm gonna go into the army. You know what I mean? And so I try and get myself as cleaned up as I can to get away to go do this, and all the while just leaving havoc and just burning everything, dude, on my way out, you know. And I decided to join the army in August 2010, and I leave for boot camp. And I remember, like, at some point my dad had said to me, yeah, I can already see how this is going to go. You're just going to go off to war, do more drugs, and then you're going to come back and be more fucked up, right? I'm like, that's fucked up, man. But, like, that's pretty much what happened, right? Because now I got an excuse, you know, afterwards, right? And he fucking, you know, he knew it, right? But, so anyway, I ended up doing that, and I think, like, lo and behold, I ended up taking myself with me, and I found like a love and passion in the military. Again, I wish somebody might have like sat down with me and said, hey, think about what you want to do, because, you know, and I kind of got fucked because I'm colorblind, and when I went in, my scores were like great. I could do technically any job that the Army offered, right? Even like the real high end, like slick stuff, but because I was colorblind, I couldn't do any of that stuff. So they gave me like 5 choices. And the only thing my grandma and my mom said to me that before I went is, don't do the infantry, you know what I mean? So I had like 5 choices, and it was like, you can work in mortuary affairs, you can be a cook, you could do laundry, or you could be an engineer or in the infantry. And I'm like, my cousin ended up being like the head of recruiting at this point, and I'm like, what's the difference between an engineer? Engineer sounds good, you know what I mean? I'm like, what's the difference between these two? And he's like, you see that guy? And there's a guy on the wall crawling under barbed wire with a gun. He's like, just take that gun out of his hand and put a shovel. I was like, all right, dude, I'll just give me a gun, I'll make my own breaks. So I come home, and he's like, is your mom and grandma going to be pissed at me? And I'm like, oh, nah, man, they're going to be all right with it. And I go home, and then my mom's just immediately crying, you know what I mean?
So you signed up for infantry.
Yeah, and this is like wartime too, right? You know what I mean? So...
what year is this, like, roughly?
2010.
Afghanistan?
Yeah. Oh, so I go down, I get stationed, and go to boot camp, Fort Benning, Georgia, and where I end up inevitably meeting my brother-in-law, which is a crazy side story, right? And him and I are in the same basic training group together, and we hit it off. We were really good buddies in there, and he ends up meeting my sister, and then later on they hook up and get married, and they got 2 kids now, and so anyway, I go through that. I get stationed. My Army career is very wild compared to a lot of other people. Some people like join the military and they get to see all these great places and go all these great places. And the only parts I've ever went to in the Army was one side of Georgia to the other side of Georgia, to which I thought was the worst thing in the world. But like, I'm in the swamps of Georgia training, and then they said, "Oh, you're going to Fort Polk, Louisiana in July." And that somehow managed to be worse than the swamps of Georgia. And then from there, I went to Afghanistan. So that were like 4 places I went my Army career, right? But yeah, and I don't want to like, you know, shorten any of that up, but it was what it was, man. Again, because I'm the way I am, there was like a newer drug that had come out, and it wasn't being tested for, and it was like that K2. So I find that, I'm like, loophole. This has got
What's that, like synthetic marijuana?
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something? A lot of people are losing their minds doing that,
Yeah,
right?
we're losing our minds, like legitimately. And I just did that for like 2 years, and then
Is this why you were in like basic and
yeah,
before?
yeah. Well, not basic. Basic was the first amount of sober time I had to
Okay.
go. And then once I got out and found this down in Georgia, and then I just did it.
Did
all
you
the time.
withdraw it at basic training or no? Or you drew a little bit before that?
I think I pretty much like had it for pretty good.
Just enough to pass the drug test kind of thing?
And that's arguable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I just think I got lucky. But yeah.
I can kind of pick out what you're putting down.
Yeah. And so anyway, again, I'm there, and now, I'm doing well. Like I'm doing well. I'm in good shape. I'm running right in the middle of the group, right, and getting up every day, and I'm not like slacking off or like pulling any bullshit, right. I'm right in there. I'm taking it serious because I'm training to go to fucking Afghanistan. Sure enough, the orders come down. We got to go to Afghanistan. I had one of the craziest deployments of my life. There was like this thing that happened right before it, and it was like big news in the Army. And this guy, Sergeant Robert Bales, ended up going nuts and killing all these civilians. He just like fucking snapped, went outside the wire, killed a whole bunch of people, and burned their bodies, right? And we were like referencing that because you have like the dark humor, and we're like making jokes about it, right? And like, don't you know that like our orders get shifted halfway through, my group gets picked to go right where this dude left, and we end up taking over for them after he just fucked this whole area up, right? It was crazy. I have a magazine with his name on it at my fucking house still, right? And so anyway, you can imagine that the locals weren't real happy.
So where were you in Afghanistan? Like
I was
you're
in
pretty remote, right?
Southern Kandahar, in a little town called Bellenbai. And the only way I can like say to people, a guy, dude, Angel at work was, and I always will talk to people about my experience in Afghanistan because I always feel like I get to tell the stories that guys never got to, the ones that didn't come home. You know what I mean? If people are genuinely asking me, right? Not like the guy, hey, man, you ever kill anybody? Like that kind of crazy shit. But if people are genuinely too curious, I have no problem answering questions. And I always say, like, it didn't even make sense that I took a helicopter there. It felt like I got out of a time machine. Like if I saw Jesus Christ walking down the street with a cross on his back, it would make more sense to me than the shit I was seeing because, like, it felt like it was 2,000 years ago. And these are like human wasp people, like they just make everything out of mud. Like everything's made out of mud. Their houses, their walls. It's just like unbelievable. You know what I mean? And man, what an experience that was in 9 months. I got attached to an ODA group, which is Green Beret group, and man, I love those guys. I had a great experience with them. It was a team of them, a group of them. We had 3 EOD guys and a squad of infantry guys. And
What's an EOD?
Something ordnance disposal.
Okay.
Explosive ordnance disposal. And
So you know that acronym is about as much as you know the
Dare one, yeah.
And them guys, dude, all them guys were just the best. I love every one of them, and I learned so much from them. And we kept each other. They kept me alive, right? And I had some really great relationships with these guys. And so we're in the middle of nowhere, far away from the flagpole, as they call it, right? Which was like your higher ups and all that stuff. And we're just getting after it, man. And it is a highly contested area. Our operations box is like 1 mile by 1 mile, and it is just fraught with fucking IEDs. And we're taking contact on base at least once, if not twice a week, depending on the weather. Because anytime it's bad weather, they start shooting at us. And they're not shooting at us like a raid in the base, just enough to like piss you off and keep you on your toes. And man, it was just a hell of an experience, man. And I got to do some really cool stuff because of the guys I was attached to, and I got to form some really good relationships with some locals and the Afghanis that were there. Not locals, but like we had a civilian mine reduction group that came with us, and a lot of these guys all had like blood feud with the Taliban, and they're probably all dead now because now it's left to the Taliban's hands. You know what I mean? And even if they survived, I'm sure they were hunted down because that's fucked up. But that's a talk for a different day. Anyway, pretty much like my dad said, I end up in an area that the only things they grow there is weed and opium, right? Off season, right? And you know, when in Rome, right? And it was a crazy time, man. But
It's funny, we're giving your dad credit for being like Nostradamus. But like, it's also like me giving Sil credit for like when I would make a phone call, she'd be like, "You're hot." Like, how does she know? I kind of guess.
Yeah, right.
Like, this is what's going to happen
Yeah.
with people like this.
So anyway, it was awesome, man. And like I said, I got to be with some. These guys were like all legitimate, like Captain America, dude. Every one of them, and I got to do some really cool shit, and we could talk about that at a different time and all. And my experience is not like others. I had a wild.
Well, just like elaborate a little bit. Like, were you freaked out when you were there? Like, what did you know what to?
No,
Had an idea what to expect? Did you know how you're gonna? I think a lot of people are genuinely curious about like.
We're told
who haven't been in war, you know,
Yeah.
like on some level, like combat.
Sure.
Like, you're in a completely foreign country, and like you described the middle of nowhere, and
we're told
there's like real violence going on.
Yeah,
like not
real-
like
yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah,
fist
for
fight
sure.
with a guy from, you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
you're taking bullets, like
For sure.
Like, did you know how you were gonna react? Like, how do you know that whole?
No, and that's what's so, and you can relate that to the fire department too, right? Like, you have, there's this, I told you about this, there's a song by, this like goofy ska band, that I remember like having a CD to as a kid, and there's this line in the one song that says, "I'm not a coward, I've just never been tested. I would like to think that if I was, I would pass," right? And I think about that a lot. And I thought that if it came to crunch time, I'd be able to, do my thing, and I did, right? And but there's a lot of guys you see that even not any of the ODA guys, right? But there's other dudes that you thought would be able to keep it together, and like when you get on a two-way range, man, it's a little bit different. You know what I mean? And same with the fire department, you see that shit all the time. But
yeah, I remember listening to Rogan's podcast. Had this dude on, the Black Rifle Coffee guy, or whatever, and he's talking about the first time he was in active combat. He's like, "We gotta get the fuck out of here!" Like freaking out. To like his commander, and his commander said, like, "Listen, you have an answer to this? If not, shut the fuck up." And then by like the time he's leaving there, and now he's well into his whole military career during active war zones, he did something, and it was like a pretty hairy situation. And he said that they didn't realize how dangerous the situation was because he was over radio, and it sounded like he was ordering a pizza.
Yeah, right, yeah, and that's, and you see same thing, fireground, like the calmness, man, like being able to think through those issues, shutting the anger off, shutting the emotion off, and just doing what you got to do to get out of it. You know what I mean? And them guys are just masters of it.
Well, you were lucky on some level to be attached with like just very
for sure.
competent. Like you know, like
Big time, yeah.
I would like to think that's
because
where
then, and it's just like that saying, like iron sharpens iron. Like you want to be there. The first day we got there, first of all we thought we were taking a jingle truck there. They kept telling us, yeah, you might take a jingle truck there.
What's that?
A jingle truck is a truck that is just like all painted up with all this shit that's hanging off of it and all these like goofy colors. And they were gonna just like Trojan horse us to the base, right? We're gonna ride in the back of this thing. They're telling us this. I'm like, dude, this is fucking crazy. We have no idea what we're going into, right? All we know is that this dude left beforehand and just murdered all these civilians 2 months before we got there. You know what I mean? And so we know it's contested. And so those orders drop. We end up taking a helicopter, and as soon as we land, we don't know what we're landing in. So we get there, we get welcomed into the base, and whatever. And we're sitting there, and they're taking us up, showing us the guard post, and it's the first night. And I sit up with the guard like 3 o'clock. I guess it was like 3 to 5 I sat. And the first thing in the morning, all of a sudden 5 o'clock in the morning, I hear this click click noise. And then all of a sudden I hear the call to prayer. And the click click was the sound of the speaker from the mosque. And I hear this call to prayer go out. And now I watch my first morning in Afghanistan, and the sun starts coming up. And all these people are starting to move around. And I'm watching this, and I'm like, this is wild, man. Because you can't explain to people how religion in that culture is that culture, right? Like there's nobody that's
There's no separation.
there's no Christmas and Easter Muslim over there. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like you have like Christians and Catholics here, right? Like
Right.
it's their science, it's their God, it's their way of life, right? And that's what's so hard to explain to anybody else, you know. And yeah, man. So it's the next morning we get down, meet everybody, and the first thing they tell us is, "Listen, we need you to forget everything you learned." You know what I mean? And like one of the big case in points I give with that is like, you know, for being in a firefight, your first instinct when you're getting shot at is, you know, to run to cover. So we're getting shot at from over here. There's a wall here. We're gonna run to that. Well, they've thought about that, and now they're rigging bombs, IEDs here. So as they start shooting you, they want you to run to cover, because then you start blowing yourself up.
They know what your operation,
Actually,
right?
they know, yeah, exactly. Yep, they know what the OPs are. So, and they know that when you get shot at, you don't want to get shot. So the first thing they're like telling you is like, hey, try and make yourself as small as possible, and just wait till we can clear a path. The EOD guys can clear a path, you know. So, first week we're there, we're in like a blackout period because they had done something and it's being investigated and whatever. So we did training for like a week with these guys, and they start seeing who we are and vice versa. And I won't harp too much on this. I'll just give you this like as an example. My first firefight, we walk out, and the dog handler, this dude Josh, he has this dog. That one was it was a Belgium. It was Sitta, and this dog would run 5 miles on a treadmill every other day, and it's a crazy machine, dude. And anyway, so we're walking out, all of a sudden we're getting shot at, and I see this dog. Now this is in like the fog of war they talk about, right? And I have no idea what's going on. I'm getting shot at. I'm trying to return fire to a position I think I'm getting shot at from. There's a 50 cal going off on the side of my head, and all this is going on at one time. And I remember like looking over and I see this dog, and the dog's just got its hands over its ears, and the other dude's leaning over the dog's back shooting. And I'm like looking at this, and the dog's just looking at me in the eyes. We're like making eye contact, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on here, right? So anyway, long story short, a little mix up, dust up, whatever, get back, and I don't know, a couple hours later, I'm still thinking about this. I go to Josh, I'm like, yo, was your dog covering its ears? He's like, well, yeah, man, guns are pretty loud. I'm just like, yeah, okay, man. Like, I didn't know a dog could cover its fucking ears, you know what I mean? It was wild, you know? And that was like my life for the next 9 months, you know what I mean? And everything that falls in between that, you know. So it was a very like wild experience, man. And I wouldn't change it for the world. However, coming out of that, it translates to nothing in the job world. You know what I mean? So that's the advice I give to other people. Like,
Oh, kind of like a liberal arts degree.
exactly.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I pretty much was in the military.
Just like that.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, man, and I'll fast forward for time reasons, right? I get out of there.
No, but you just did your like addiction or whatever just go away there? Like, not to get too into it, but like,
Well, you know what's funny?
or did you come out of that with the same problem you had walking in?
It was the first. Yeah. Yes. But like leaving there, and I don't know, like romanticize it all, but like it's a different thing out there, man. You know, and I don't think I had the time to like go through withdrawals in a sense. I don't know. It was a weird thing, man. And but like I was just drinking opium like every day. Like it's so pure that I would just crumble it up and drink it. You know what I mean? And I went through that for a long time. And I almost got in trouble because two of my own guys who ended up they ended up deciding that they're going to try and tell on me, and I ended up getting around that and everything else. Like I always do. I always come out unscathed, right? And I don't want to get into the details about it, but it was like fucked up. And it ended up like really fucking them over because like they showed their true colors, and the guys felt like, dude, if you're going to rat your own guy out, what are you going to do?
Can't trust you. Yeah.
Can't trust you. And that's a real thing out there. You know
I
what
bet.
I mean?
Yeah.
And so anyway, it got worked out and everything was cool. But these guys almost ruined my life. I almost ruined my own life. But these guys decided that whatever, and it was problematic, man. And I'm to blame for it, but you know, you gotta watch what you do out there because it gets viewed in a totally different light from people who had welcomed me into that fold and we were fighting it out, and now all of a sudden these guys decide they're gonna say something, you know, and whatever. It all worked out for me at least. and as it always did, which probably was part of the problem, right? So fast forward, right? I can tell Afghanistan stories for days. I know. What time are we at?
About 20 minutes.
All right. So anyway, fast forward. Decide I'm getting out of the military because I when I get home, a lot of the ODA guys I met, they were going to the schoolhouse, and someone talking, hey man, why don't you drop a packet? You know,
What's the schoolhouse?
They're going to teach next
Okay,
in
sorry.
the rotation. So they're going to go to the schoolhouse where they're going to put the next class through and on. Hey man, why don't you put a packet in, this, that, and the other thing? And it was very like humbling to hear that. And I couldn't get waivers because I was colorblind, so I couldn't do that. And then I tried, okay, well, maybe I'll try and do the EOD thing. And of course, if I can't do that, they're definitely not going to let me play with bombs and wires if I can't see color. You know what I mean? So I decided I'm going to get out. You know.
Cut the orange one.
And I'm home on leave, terminal leave, and I run into an old friend of mine who we hunt with up in the mountains, and he says, Stevie, why don't you think about taking a fire department test? And I'm like, dude, I don't know nothing about fire department, you know? So he's like, dude, just do yourself a favor. He's like, it's the greatest gig going. Just do yourself study and take the test. So I don't remember if I took it on leave or if right when I got out, I came back, I took the test, and I didn't hear nothing for a while. And then something came up, a friend of mine decided we're gonna move out to California for a little while. And all the while I'm thinking in the back of my head, if I do well on this and I get called, I'll come back, you know. And at the same time, right when I got out, I had met my wife before I went into the Army. And she worked at, I've been doing side work with my dad for a long time. And again, this is another person that I just ran through the gamut of addiction.
So you were dating prior to Afghanistan?
Yeah, we were like seeing each other, yep. And then I got out of Afghanistan, and then we were getting a little bit more serious. And then I was like, oh, I gotta go. I gotta. And she was thinking that things were like progressing, and then she was like heartbroken. I'm like, I gotta go figure some shit out. And I just boom up and leave, go to California.
What were you going to California for?
I was going to learn how to grow weed. Just in case. Just in case. I think I got 150 acres of the mountains, and just in case, yeah, so I was going to
Humboldt County and just...
Nah, I was too stupid to even go there, dude. A buddy of mine's dad knew how to grow weed and told us how to grow weed and whatever. I was stupid. But
ambitious.
Yeah, so I wanted to go learn how to do that, and I did. And then I learned how to grow weed. Just in case, you know, in case it ever came legal, I could, you know, grow something off the mountains, right, which never panned out, right? So, I mean, my uncle's watching, don't worry. And so from that point on, the test comes back.
I love the juxtaposition of you going to California to grow weed and little Shawnee 2 years old. Or potty.
So I try and do like a school thing out there, and I'm, you know, doing the GI Bill thing, but nothing's working out, man. And again, now I'm like finding other shit out there, right? Like, and this is one of the craziest parts of my life because I had never had any experience. I was always like a downers guy, you know what I mean? And I remember, and I thought I was doing coke, and someone told me it was coke, and I ended up snorting a line of meth for the first time, and which was fucked up. And he's dead now, and not from me, just in general. Clarify that. And he was a dude from Kenya. He's a white dude from Kenya, of all things. Yeah, very interesting dude. And his name was Alex, man. He was a good guy, minus him lying to me about getting high on meth. But the first time I did meth, it was the only drug I've ever done that it felt like it changed my DNA. Like instantly. Like I can't explain it other than that, but like it fucking changed me. You know what I mean? And not for the best, you know? And I didn't even like it, but like it was available, and I am a junkie.
So that wasn't the only time you did meth?
No, right.
Okay, right.
But like the first time I did it, I then did it consecutively for like 4 or 5 days. Like, cause you know what I mean? And then like, all the experiences that people talk about, like the worst experience I had within the first 4 or 5 days, and then at some point I like went to sleep, and then I decided, oh, I should probably try that again. You know what I mean? Like just 'cause I'm fucking insane. So anyway, I end up getting the phone call that fire department thing is a go, and I kind of just worn out my welcome out there, and
Well, I mean, I guess at this point in time, like even you're still in active addiction. Like, I know for myself, like I was just waiting for like something to happen in my life that would like change everything.
So-
like this like stabilizing thing,
That's
right?
kind
Like
of
this
what I
thing that would like bring me out of like this floundering in immaturity.
yeah, so
and
many times, dude, I would try,
something outward, right?
So many times I'm trying to like take Suboxone for a couple days and stay clean, and I get 4 or 5 days. Like I'm doing the whole thing we hear about from everybody. I'm doing all that. You know what I mean? Trying on my own, and so anyway, the fire department thing comes down. I'm gonna get a shot at that, and I fly home, and I end up selling my truck out there, like just getting the fuck out of there, and my now wife, who I get home and my dad's like, nah, you ain't fucking living here. So I just kind of slide in with her and started living with her, and now I'm still a fucking mess, dude. And now I'm like a real mess. I'm bringing nothing to the table at this point. I'm waiting for this fire department thing to hit. And my whole thought of the whole time is like, all right, if I can just get to the job and get on the fire department, I can ride some time out, and then I'll go away and get sober for real. You know what I mean? Like really do, because I don't want to be living like this. You know what I mean? And this is like where it gets real interesting, because I gotta give Mickey all the credit she's due. You know what I mean? Like,
And Mickey's your wife now.
Right? Yes, yeah. Mickey's my wife, and she has put up with me. I think women have this like way of seeing men, and they can see what they're capable of becoming, and they can hold on to that to a fault, because a lot of times it probably doesn't pan out, but she saw that in me. You know what I mean? And so I get on the job, and I'm going through it, man. And again, I reference this like beat dog mentality. The only way I got through what I got through is because I don't have that quit in me. You know what I mean? Once I was there for day one, well, I already did day one. I might as well stay to the end at this point. You know what I mean? And I get through it, and I'm not doing well, and people know it. And they're getting suspicious, and people are talking to me, and I'm taking a defensive spot, and I'm playing the PTSD card, and, how dare you, I don't fucking sleep, and I'm just becoming this fucking, everything that I would despise in another fucking human being today, you know what I mean? Using excuses, everything, and I'm just trying to get to where this goal is, that like I have enough time, I can go away and get right, you know what I mean?
So you on the fire department now, kind of? Or,
Yeah.
Okay, got through the academy.
I'm in the academy. I get through the academy by the grace of God. I get to my firehouse where I'm at. I'm only there for like 2 months, and I end up having to go away. At this point, Mickey and I had just got engaged, and now I'm going away to rehab, and I'm like, I feel like
So this is your first rehab?
Real rehab,
Right,
yeah.
right.
And I feel like the weight is off my shoulders. Oh, thank God. And then I don't even know if I'm gonna have a job at this point. Then I find out like, no, you're still gonna have a job, and you're everything's okay, everything's cool. And I think they're just telling me this, just to tell me, you know what I mean? And so I go away. I take it like super serious, you know what I mean? And I get out, and I have to like have this real conversation. Like, are we doing this? Are we doing the marriage thing? And like, I felt like I owed her so much for like taking care of me that way, that like it wasn't even an option. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh yeah, I owe her. Like this is what we're doing, and I got this, and I'm gonna figure it all out. And I didn't realize that like that early sobriety, and you're still crazy. You know what I mean? And we did it, and we had a beautiful wedding, and my dad still stood by my side as my best man, and had this amazing wedding up the mountains, and I was sober for. And
How long are you sober at this point?
Not long, dude. 90 days maybe.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
I got married 4 months ago.
You guys, right.
Yeah. And
Yeah, I was with Sil for 9 years doing all this kind of stuff. But that's why I always say, like, it wasn't a major decision for me, it was a major one for her.
right. Yeah.
Because my track record was 0.
Yeah. Same with me, and that's why I was saying like she deserves so much credit, right? And now during this time, I'm sober and I'm in that early sobriety, and I don't have the AA piece to it, right? So now like I'm just searching, right? And I'm making all these other bad decisions.
What is like Mickey thinking at this time? Like, do you know?
She's
Like,
yeah,
is she
she's
just like holding on like for hope? Like,
but
just
she's just happy I'm sober, right? She's thinking I got to
Good.
figure it out. I'm
Right.
sober, but she's not aware of how crazy I can be still. You know what I mean? And so I'm going through all this, and in the meantime, now we have like 2 kids, and I stay sober for 5 years, but I'm not living right, man, and that's the problem. I've traded in one addiction for another, right? And whether it be, scratch off lottery tickets, I never got big into the gambling, but like every other thing you could think of, overeating, undereating, right? I blew up to like 250 pounds. I get Lyme's disease right after I get sober. I got fucking huge to the point where I was like bending down to tie my shoes one day. I was out of breath. I'm like, I gotta fix this, you know what I mean? And then that started my journey into like really getting fit and working out and
You fixed it by going back to the Velcro straps.
orthopedic shoes.
Yeah, I'd rather do that than work out.
Yeah, so again, like that's self accountability, right? And I have 5 years sober. I thought I was a completely changed person. I have 2 beautiful kids at this point, and the one story you're talking about with Angelina, and I just want to tell with having Stevie. We used a midwife, and this woman gave birth to me 30 years prior. I was one of the first babies she ever delivered from my mom, and we used the same midwife. And she was a very funny lady, this lady Pat. She's a great woman. She's retired now, and I hope the best for her. And I just had my class on delivering a baby in the academy for the EMT, and I tell Mickey, I'm like, look, we don't really need a midwife. I can do this. You know what I mean? I just got to the firehouse because I asked the other guys at the firehouse. I'm like, yeah, how many guys have all delivered a baby? And every one of them had their hand up. One, I did it twice, and so I'm like, Mick, we don't need this. We'll do it at the house, right? Well, so she tells Pat this. She's like, oh, Steve, you think you got that? Okay, you're delivering your baby. You know what I mean? So sure as shit, like I put my foot in my mouth like I've done fucking thousands of times in my life, and it's go time, and now I'm delivering Stevie, dude, and I got to deliver my son, man, which is like one of the coolest,
Out of your mind.
coolest things in the world that I love, and the only thing is like I didn't hit me till after it was all done, then I realized like that was my son, like because I almost like was just treating her as a patient because I was like because I can separate. And the same thing. You can separate that mind in that moment. Like, all right, this is my job. Boom, doing this. And then all of a sudden, like, my sister's there with my wife, and I like hand this baby over, and then I like sit on the couch, and I just start fucking crying. Dude. It was crazy. It was the craziest thing in my life, man.
Well, isn't that weird? I mean, you said that at the very beginning when we started, you talk about like how you're just like inherently like you think of yourself as like a soft person, but it's like odd that like combat vet, fireman, like all these things that on the outside you would think of as like they take like bravery or toughness, like
yeah, I think that's the
like,
weirdest
it's like
part
an
of
odd
it.
like
These
contrast.
people probably have this view of me that is not real. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, it's not that it's not real. It's just I think there's a dichotomy to most
Absolutely,
people. There's more nuance to people than
and maybe it's just because like I have gotten to see that side of life that I don't want to live in that. I want to live in the softer reality of it. You know what I mean? So yeah, we have this. Now all of a sudden I'm sober, but I'm not working a program. I don't have any of the really important things that I don't even realize are important in my life. I don't have much in between me and my addiction, but I felt like I'm a changed person, and I'd never go back to that. And then some shit hits the fan, man, and the COVID thing happens. The world fucking turns. I'm not blaming anything on anything of this. The other things I was putting in place of my addiction start rearing its head. I'm dealing with other people going through some trauma that I didn't want to be a part of, and all these things just at the same time hit. And I have nothing to protect myself. And then I smoke a joint for the first time, and I immediately think to myself, like, oh my God, like I miss this person, right? I miss that, like, not caring, being able to, like, it felt like the first time in forever I could drop my shoulders and just fucking relax and not be so fucking serious, you know what I mean? And
I think that's because of being sober without kind of, you know, being involved with other people as far as the recovery aspect of a 12-step program.
yeah, absolutely.
You know, you're not like that tense today.
No, I can feel the difference in that, you know what I mean? And I just wasn't doing the things I needed to do. I was just talking. I wasn't talking to nobody. I wasn't, you know what I mean? And that's like the biggest thing about AA's afforded me today and having you guys in my life is like, I can say the craziness that I'm thinking, and then you guys can shut that down real quick, right? And just like, like hit that pressure relief button, man. I can just like let it out, and there's no judgment. I can talk to you guys about the real things in my life, and learning how to communicate with other men emotionally, that has ran through all different parts of my life, because that makes me better in the firehouse. It makes me better as a dad. It makes me better as a husband. You know what I mean? All those things, and so like the AA piece. Once I like go through all that, and I have a relapse, and again I almost die for a second time, almost exactly how it happened the first time, and I don't want to get too much into that. Not because of anything else, just because of time constraints and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, you got to be careful with some of the things you say
Right.
too, of course, right?
So
Scott, you have to leave. Or you
When I dip, I'll just dip, and you can guys can finish
Yeah,
without
so
me.
it's like-
Yeah, don't
Yeah.
don't hurry up because
yeah, well, no,
I'm just
I,
gonna dip.
I,
and-
like it ain't that.
Yeah, this is the thing about like people are like, why don't you have like the podcast? Right? Like, well, because I get a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, and now you're getting an understanding of like why I have to dip out. This dude's home with a urine. He's just being a kid. Like
Yeah,
he just
right,
wants
right.
attention. He's upstairs watching America's Funniest Video now, but like then Scott has yoga at 11. He's going to do that. I'm like,
Yeah.
because it's hard. It's hard to get people
It is
together
hard.
and stuff.
Especially the holidays coming up and all. But anyways, I'm almost done anyway. So, because this is
If the story gets any better, I might just bag yoga, but we'll see.
No, this is the best part of the story, man. And this is the first time it becomes easy in my life, right? Sean shows up for me. The people at my work show up for me, and
So after you almost OD, how do you run into Sean?
he shows back up at my house, gets a phone call from
He
my
shows up
buddy,
at your house.
gets multiple phone calls from other sides of my life, and then shows up the next day to sit down with all the people who I work with and be like, yo, you gotta go away. And nobody knew how bad things were.
But you knew Sean prior to this?
Yeah.
Just from the
We met
tests?
before this, dealing with, you know, we were there for backups as EAP goes and all that kind of stuff.
You were working EAP.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
As like a
5
dry,
years.
right?
Yeah. As a dry,
Right.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and then it's funny because then I'm friends with this girl Claire from Karen Rehab, and she says, "Hey, I got this girl I would like you to talk to. Her brother's a fireman, and he just he relapsed recently and he overdosed." And I'm like, "Yeah, no problem. What's her name?" And Sam Purcell. I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "What? Stevie's sister?" She's like, "Yeah." I'm like, well, "Okay, no problem. I'll talk to you and see what's up." But you got to remember at this time, like, I'm involved with Steve with all this other kind of stuff too. So it was a surprise to me, and you know, start reaching out to certain people. I think I kept that a secret from him because I didn't want him and his sister arguing over anything. Like, and I don't really, I rarely do that because I don't like that whole thing. But I understood where she was coming from, and eventually told him anyway. But he has a very well-respected, traditionally upheld firehouse, and we, kind of had like this mini intervention.
Yeah.
At your house.
At my house. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I set up for it. Like, nobody knew that I knew it was coming, and I knew it was coming. You know what I mean?
Yeah, an interventionist that lays out his own chairs.
Right.
Yeah. So I was just telling the story the other day. We did an intervention for one of my buddies back in, a couple years ago, and not even to get into any of the story, but we're waiting for this dude to come. He pulls up in the driveway, and my one buddy and the guy's sister ducked down like it was a surprise party, like they were gonna pop out.
Surprise! Yeah. So, what are you doing?
Surprise.
There's
So-
Shawnee there too.
Yeah.
So.
Get
So
a
that
Christmas
all
ornament.
goes, and the best thing that ever happened to me for this whole thing is, I chose to go back to my drug of choice, and I did it one time. And the best thing that happened to me is I overdosed. I never got to go on a run. I did. So
So how long were from when you said you smoked weed till?
it was about 4 to 5 months.
Okay, so not a long time.
Not a long time, and but it went quick, and as it would, right? And I'm sure if it happened again, it would be 2 months, and I'm sure if it happened again, it'd be 1 month. You know what I mean? And so I got that opiate in my system one time, and it almost killed me. And thank God, right? Because I never went on a run. I never got to fucking lose all that. I mean, the mistrust and everything else came back with my parents and all and everybody else, but like the fact that it was only once, like nobody understands how important that is except other addicts, because I never got that taste. I never went on that run, none of that, you know. And I realized then.
And the destruction, man, like the wake of fucking destruction that comes along
and
with
all that emotion coming back to my parents and everybody, my sister again, like, dude, I can't believe this. I thought he changed, you know what I mean? Like, so now, like, Sean shows up, and I know Sean.
I feel like everyone, I mean, he's not here, but like, I feel like everyone has like a Sean
Oh,
story.
everybody.
It was really like, he's not that
sober.
guy like himself, but like I was telling him, I was running with my buddy Dave last night, and I'm like, it's just uncanny. Like everyone has this like closet Sean story at like a pivotal moment of their life.
Yeah.
Like always at like the advent of their sobriety. And it's always fucking Sean.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which
I went
is really
to
neat.
I was working at his old firehouse after I get sober, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is Dugan's old platoon and all, and I'm like, oh, let me guess, he got you sober. And I'm like, yeah, he did. Yeah. And he's like, fuck you, and they're laughing and all, and but that just shows.
But there's dozens.
Like
I mean, dozens of stories of
Yep.
like of Sean showing up at that point. And I think that's one of those things where like he just has that like uncanny ability to like be in people's lives at the right time and like accepts that responsibility. Like he takes that seriously. You know what I mean? Like it really. And it's neat, like,
and I
I'll hear shit that I don't even know about. So, I mean, I've known Sean for his entire sobriety, right? Like, I've sponsored him throughout his whole sobriety, and like, I'll hear stuff sometimes in meetings or whatever, like random people, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
He wrote me to rehab 3 hours away, or he put money in my books in jail, and I'm like, what are you talking? I don't even know who you are. You know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't even, like, it just is
none
always,
of it surprises you.
No,
You've heard
it
it so
doesn't.
many times that it doesn't even surprise you.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I said to him that day, I'm like, listen, dude, because he said, oh, did you do the AA thing? And I'm like, no. He's like, just do the step work. No. So he's like, oh, all right, cool. Like, let's a layup then. Like, we got something to start. I said, listen, I need you to be my sponsor, because I've been around AA and I never like asked anybody, or I'd ask somebody temporarily and never follow up when I said, I need you to be my sponsor. Like, I know you're doing the right thing. I need you to be my sponsor. And I went away, and he called me a couple times back and forth, and then I got home, and I was just like, dude, I'm serious about this. Like, I need you to be this for me. You know what I mean? And then we're coming up on 3 years of a totally different style of sobriety.
Well, that's one of the neat things. I mean, it's stop it. I even harking back to Sean. Like I remember, I guess the last time he went away, I had sponsored him for maybe a couple months, and then he was like balking at some stuff, and I ended up relapsing and was back down in Florida. And I had never met, and still wasn't his wife at the time. They were just engaged, and I had never met her. And somehow she had my phone. I don't know how she got my phone. Probably from Sean, right? Like, and he's in rehab, and I get this like text from Sil, right? She's like, "Hey, it's Sil. You don't know me," blah, blah, blah. And I'd never met her. I'm probably about 4 or 5 years sober at the time, and she's engaged to be married to him. She's like, "You need to tell me that it's gonna be all right, right?" Like she's texting me like, "You need to tell me that he's gonna be all right."
Right.
And I'm like, if he sticks with us, I'm texting her back like, and there's a lot of gravity to that, right? Like someone's like, "Tell me,"
Yeah.
and I'm like, if he sticks with us, he's gonna be all right.
Yeah.
And like, I genuinely believe that in my heart. Like
absolutely.
I know, like, and it's probably Sean felt like, you haven't done the steps.
Got it. Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
and he says that, like, dude, that was like such an eye-opening piece when we're talking, because it's like, cool, we have somewhere to start. Like we have a tried and tested solution that you didn't do.
it reminds me of that freaking like, and I just think it's really powerful because he's not really even in the program, but that jelly roll story that he had when he would sit in the back of meetings for some mental health stuff, and he said he was in there and the guy had like 6 hours and he's breaking down and he's crying, he's in this meeting, and this guy's in there and he's just shattered human being, man, right? A grown man, shattered, and he walks up to get like a 24-hour chip. He has a desire to stop, right? And the guy leading the meeting is like an old brother or whatever. Is like, you know, it's all right, baby. Nobody comes in here on a winning streak, right? And it's like, and he talks about it. Joe's like, it's the most gangster shit I ever seen. And like, but the dude knows, he's seen it 1,000 times, right? Like, you're gonna be all right, bud.
Yeah.
Like, if you do what we do, you're gonna be all
And
right.
that's it, dude. And it's just like, and then at that point, dude, I didn't want to lose it, dude. And I have fought every day for it, and I refused, just like all the important things in my life. That's the most important thing in my life. You know what I mean? If I could be half as good or care half as much as the way I do about my kids and my family, I would be amazing at everything. You know what I mean? Because I take that so serious. You know what I mean? And I refuse to let that go. And then I meet you guys, and I have the running joke that like I was so out of touch with AA that like my sponsor had to start his own AA meeting to get me to go. You know what I mean? And here I am coming up on 3 years. You know,
But you kind of like, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I feel like you, having been sober dry or whatever prior, and I feel like you kind of really took to it. Like, I feel like you found something that you were looking for.
It was the missing piece, for sure.
Right.
Yeah. And
like, I feel like you like.
Yeah, because I respond well to that like camaraderie thing, and I hadn't found it in that, and then I found it, and I was like, oh, this is what we do. And you put it really well before to me on a run one day, and you're like, dude, at some point, neither of us are getting any more sober, and we're just here to help keep each other sober. You know what I mean? And like that's what that. Once I like realized that, and I'm like, oh, we're all just like helping each other out, and it's like, oh, that's what this becomes. You know what I mean? And then,
well, I think people come in and think there's like this like hierarchy, or people have like these answers, or like you're reaching this graduation point. It's like, no, we're just a group of people that are trying to better each other,
Yeah.
and we rely on each other. You know,
yeah, for
it's
sure.
that. I mean, are you the one who? My boy Dave, you guys are really similar, but I think he talks about that tribe book or whatever, right? And I think you talked about that a decent amount. And it's like you find like this.
Find your tribe, man.
I think you. I was talking to him about it last night. We were on a run over at the West, and I usually meet up with him like once a week and head out for a run. We just have these like long conversations, and and I was telling him the story about something that had happened in a meeting on Wednesday, and I'm like, man, I forget, like, I take for granted maybe sometimes like the access that I have to these like powerful human experiences that like not everybody gets in their day to day. You know what I mean? And it's like, man, it's so gratifying to see like this redemption stories and these things of like hope and like gratitude. Yeah. It's like on like a corny level, but it's like, man, it's just human.
You almost have
and not everybody has that.
It's the toll. It's the buy-in, dude. It's the buy-in to get into the club. You know what I mean? Like you have to pay. You have to go to almost hell, or like, or be so broken that you get welcomed in, and then hopefully, if you recover, you get all the benefits that come along with that, and they're the things that you never expect them to be in your life. You know?
You never come looking for that, right?
No, and you're just hoping to be alive. You know what I mean? And hoping maybe not to just destroy the rest of your life or whatever it is, and then you get all these other things and these, like you said.
And not everybody, to be honest, like it's like not everybody comes in and gets that either.
Yeah.
Like you'll find what you're looking for. Like Sean always says, like there's people that are around for 5-10 years that just like don't see the magic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they just don't see it. Like for whatever reason. Like and like look, they get sober and they get benefit, but like I could tell with you even right away, man. Like you weren't even probably a year sober when I met you. You could just tell you got it, man. Like you saw it. I always say that you can see it in people when they get it. And it's just like there's like an aura to the soul that you start to see in someone, and it's like you could tell you always appreciated it.
I could tell it was missing immediately. Like once I like got in with you guys and like I saw it, and I was like, oh, this is what they talk about, and I knew that was the missing piece, man. You know, and
because when you come back from that, what it is now service to others, and then if you remember, you started some kind of Zoom type thing with combat vets.
Yeah.
Like right away, right? You start making a meeting with them and doing that kind of stuff too.
It was always to hold me over in the meantime, because I even as comfortable as I am in total chaos, still walking into a new room, right? Even today is there's like always like a little bit of much less now, but it's still like there's an apprehension to it. You know what I mean? And you do what you if you're willing to do whatever it takes, you do whatever it takes. You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of the best way to put that. And I learned from the best, man. So that's where I'm at.
Well, hopefully the show was good. I missed some of it. Like I said, this is the only way it was gonna work. This dude's home, but we could have canceled. But
Yeah.
let's just do it anyway.
Yeah,
See what happens. I told you guys didn't need me for this. You guys know what you're doing. Just talking to the microphone. Scott, you're gonna be able to make Yogi.
No, I'm missing it. Whatever.
You're gonna miss it.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Sorry.
All right.
I'd rather. It's not that.
I was gonna wrap it up so that.
You just cost me
Yeah, me
30.
too.
You cost me $30. Gotta bring something good to the party tomorrow night.
So far, the whole entire podcast career has got all of us in arrears.
Done nothing but lose money.
Yeah, just had some like really fun, cool conversations, man.
Yeah.
Well, I just think, I mean, it's just neat to like get together and talk. It becomes so natural. It's like, who even cares if
That's
anybody
what-
else is interested in it? Because I think it's rewarding or gratifying just to do it. Like,
Well, it's the same way I feel when I leave a meeting. I know I'm done here and I feel better.
Yeah.
Like it's cool, and I enjoy the conversation, and then giving people the opportunity to possibly listen to this that don't get the opportunity to go. I heard like briefly about like what we get at meetings on a daily basis is like that substance of the conversation.
well, that's real. I mean, I was talking to and you guys both know Dave well, but like, it's like one of my buddies who just outside of the program that I just met and have known for probably 15 years, maybe longer, 20 running, and just a really neat dude. He reminds me a ton of you. And we were talking last night about it, and it's like, man, like that people don't have that in their lives, right? Like, just I'm really fortunate to have that.
Yeah.
And I was telling Steve, like, you were going, like, I take it for granted, but it's a big deal, man. Like, it
Reminds me of that like Jimmy Valvano speech when he was dying of cancer, like talking about like if you're having a full day, if like you're moved to tears, moved to laughter, and all whatever it was. I'll chop it up, but like to be moved to like it happens all the time at meetings.
all the time.
Laughing and crying.
You're laughing and crying in the same meeting.
You can laugh and cry at the same share. Like some of these
Yeah.
people that have that gift to wear the
Yeah.
chair, you know. My buddy Bobby Swiggs is one of them who I just got off the phone with, and definitely have him up here. And there's so many people that go through my head where, I would love to put a microphone in front of their face. Just to, again, because I get to experience all the time and I know the story and always appreciated it. But like, here's the opportunity to give them a platform and talk to others.
Well, I think even like I'm sure Syl said similar things, but I was talking to Danielle briefly about it last night, and it's like she was like, I always look forward to the anniversary meetings because I like it's just a human story, right? Of like some sort of like it's just not everyone gets that, and it's like in real life. This isn't some made up Hollywood like thing that's like artificial. Like it's genuine, and people there's a need for that. I mean, Syl always talks about that too, like loving, like anytime you can attend something, like.
No, Syl will be like, go as far as like she'll tell me like, I need a meeting. Like,
right. Well, they don't have to.
So it's funny, but I understand what you, because Timmy, Lacey, all these people that have gone, my mom, to these anniversary meetings who aren't alcoholics, and they loved it. They enjoyed themselves because they were moved to tears or laughter or whatever it was, because it's like, again, it's that genuine, honest, like good-hearted conversation.
Yeah. And we don't. You only see it in other people because there's a lot of people that are hurting. Like I have a buddy of mine, and I always like, I wish you were an alcoholic. You know what I mean?
Because I would know where to take you.
And yeah, because like, and you would fit. You everything else fits, but you like. It's like, go ahead and drink for a couple of years, man, and I'll take you in.
Well, that's what our buddy Chris Stripes always said. The rest of the world could really use steps 2 through 12. But at the same time, if there's not a problem in one, like I'm not looking at that. Because it's uncomfortable. I had the problem in one and still took me 8 years to look at it.
Right. Stango asked me about that last night. He's like, do you think this would work for people who don't have a problem? Like, probably, but would you be willing to do it? Like, sincerely?
Yeah,
Like,
because that's always like the thing.
he's probably odd enough to be willing to do it, but that's a rare. Like, you gotta be seeking, you know what I mean? Like,
I went away to the rehab I went to after the day with Sean and all, and it was like a rehab made for like first responders and veterans, and this guy gets up and he says, the only thing we have in common is the fact that we're all addicts or drug addicts. He's like, there's plenty of soldiers that suck. There's plenty of firemen that suck. There's plenty of police officers that are shitty at their job, right? Like just because we hold the same title doesn't mean we're the same type of person. But we are an alcoholic, right? And that should bring us together more so than the fact that might have PTSD, you might have been in a fire, right? Because that's such a large spectrum, and the bill doesn't fit. Like the same people that are in there, or in the fire department, or whatever, they're not. That's not always enough to be like, oh, well, yeah, we have this in common, but you know, it's not just because you wear the uniform don't mean you are where you are. You know what I mean? But if you're drunk and you're looking for help, then you probably got something in common with somebody. You know what I mean?
Well, even wearing the uniform, that's where I was talking about this yesterday with a couple of people. It's like, this is what we do. It's not who I am.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and the lines get blurred for most people, and I understand why. But I've always just, you know, I think having a good upbringing and honestly being around the neighborhood kids who I came up with, like, helped me to realize, like, I came up with this kind of fraternity when I was a kid, man.
Right.
So I get why people gravitate towards it, because, like, I was blessed to have it since I was in, you know, grade school and high school.
Yeah.
You know, but, like, again, it's like, well, who are you? A lot of people go, oh, I'm a fireman. I'm a something like that. It's not who you are. It's what you do.
Yeah.
I get that it becomes a part of you. I understand that. But to what degree? Like, are you throwing all your chips in all
Well,
that?
I think there's also a default if like you don't have a whole lot else, like that becomes,
Right. Yes.
Well,
you know, like that becomes your priority and identity.
Well,
you
you're
know?
also talking about people that have a whole lot else and kind of missed it because they work so
Yeah.
much.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, I agree. Yeah.
And I think like everything, what we're striving for, right? Balance in life. I gotta balance all this kind of stuff out,
Yeah.
right? And I always seek out stuff that makes me feel good.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff, you know, dangerous, fattening, expensive, illegal. That's it's crazy. But how you guys feel? You want to wrap it up?
Yeah. I feel bad that you missed it now, and then I was like, yeah, it's fine. I just
I
feel bad 'cause I was looking. I felt like
don't
we're.
I don't care. Yeah. I say, yeah, whatever, dude.
Sean's looking at like $1,000 of equipment on him. Like, okay,
Yeah, 30 beans, it'd be good. Yeah. Yeah, so far, that and my comedy career, well, like in the rears. took a loan out. But no, thank you guys, man. You know how much I love and appreciate you guys, and hopefully people can watch us and tune in and get to experience and enjoy it as much as I do, and I get to have these conversations on the daily with both of you. So
Yeah.
I know how blessed I am and fortunate to be on this side of the fence with you guys.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you guys a lot, man. I love you, and thanks for having me up.
Cool. That was that point.
It's weird here in those.
Huh?
It's weird in those.
It is.